Welcome back to Oathbound Gaming. Today we're discussing Diablo 2, one of my favorite games of all time. I got my Diablo 2 Resurrected shirt on and I'm ready to talk D2. Specifically, why the hell does Diablo 2 hold up so well even 20 years later? I mean, look at Diablo 2 Resurrected, it's pretty much the same exact game with a fresh coating of paint. But it plays so well, it's such a nice game to just jump into and play, but why? Let's look into that, let's dive into this. Let's go. Diablo 2 defined the ARPG genre with its deep itemization and character builds. Whether you like the game or not, you must admit that it had an incredible impact on the gaming world, and I would argue even beyond the ARPG genre. With so many games taking heavy influence from Diablo 2's features such as Path of Exile, Last Epic, Grim Dawn, and even games outside the genre like Borderlands. Yeah, Borderlands. It's pretty obvious that Diablo 2 spreads far and wide. Community interaction. Players often find themselves working with other players to conquer the depths of hell. Classes synergize so well that playing as a team usually works better than completely alone. It certainly doesn't stop there, though. The community also loves to kill each other. Who doesn't like some PvP, right? That's right, Diablo 2 PvP community is still alive and well. Is that where it starts and ends, though? The PvE, grouping together, the PvP, killing each other? No, it doesn't. Hell no. We're talking about Diablo, we gotta say hell no, right? Hell no. Trading. Right? The biggest reason to work with fellow Diablo 2 players, the best part of trading is the fact that there's no auction house, no third-party website to automate the process, and definitely no real money auction house. Right? Right, Diablo 3? You want an item, you make a game asking players to bring it, then drop your offers in the trade box. The bartering begins. My favorite type of trading was joining like a general trade game and dropping WUG in chat. W-U-G. What you got. The other players would usually proceed to show just what they got in the trade window. I get to see a game that had such a large focus on player trading. All of those features, including trading, have you talk with other players, bartering, working with or against each other. It's hard to find an ARPG that has you interacting with the community so often. For instance, in PoE, Path of Exile, a third-party website with in-game trade integration is the main source of all trading in the game, and it tends to have you messaging 10+ players to receive one response, which results in like a 5-second trade interaction. It's also important to say that there are some third-party websites that exist for Diablo 2, item trading, but they are a drop in the bucket when you compare it to the overall vast community trading that occurs within the game. Our next reason? Itemization. So many items. So many unique items. And I don't mean the quality. I mean unique in the way that it impacts your character. Take Flesh Ripper, for instance. This weapon adds so many modifications to your basic attacks. But it's basic, right? Basic attacks. Maybe that's not enough for you. Well, maybe you want something a little bit more flashy. How about the Bing Zhuang? Alright? It means King of Cold in Chinese. Look it up. A chance to cast Frozen Orb on striking? Hell yeah. If you don't know what Frozen Orb is, that is a level 30 cold spell from Sorceress that's just an orb of cold that's throwing out little frozen bolts at everyone and wiping out the screen. You can have that proccing as a melee character. It's amazing. How about the Stone of Jordan? Simple yet elegant. One of the most iconic items in Diablo 2. Uniques are what I consider the basic items in D2. Basic? Why basic? Well, Breath of the Dying, Call to Arms, Enigma. What do all these items have in common? I ask you, what do they have in common? That's right, they're all items in Diablo 2. Next section. Nah, just kidding. Rune words. Rune words are what I consider more advanced itemization, a way to create even stronger and more impactful items. With the addition of rune words in Lord of Destruction, the game's itemization exploded. So much more to work towards, so much more to trade for. Brings me to my next point. The simplistic character building. Now, this is not an insult or a con. The character building is amazing in Diablo 2. It's simple enough for new players to jump into the game and make a basic building and get started. Having something in a game that looks like this versus this. Now, that is not a shot at Path of Exile. I really enjoy Path of Exile, let me just say that. But have you ever done research for Path of Exile? Like, you spend, like, hours trying to make a build before you even start playing? You don't get that in Diablo 2. You don't get that kind of experience. So it's got that simplistic type of design that lets players just jump right in. So you can certainly see how the Diablo 2 skill system is more approachable for new players. That doesn't mean that building characters in Diablo 2 is a brain-dead process. With the advanced itemization, we can easily put more thought into our build and end up with a powerhouse of a character that can slay all of the denizens of hell on hardcore with a breeze, for the most part. I'm looking at you, Uber Tristram. The challenge. Diablo 2 is a pretty challenging game, but as I mentioned before, with the character build and itemization, the game has simple aspects to it that make it easily approachable, right? It allows new players to jump into the game, and they streamline the process. Normal, Nightmare, Hell. What are those? Normal, Nightmare, Hell, what's that? The 3 difficulties of Diablo 2, that's right. So players start with normal difficulty, no reduction in resistances like Nightmare and Hell have, so the game is a lot easier to just jump into in normal and begin to learn your character, learn your build, learn what spec you want to go. Maybe you want to re-roll a character. You're doing that pretty much within the normal difficulty. You're really learning the basics of the game, right? It allows new players to get their feet wet. Nightmare and Hell turns it up a bit. Resistance reduction, more champions, more enemy immunities, more unique enemies, stuff like that. Players are a bit more advanced and knowledgeable at this point in their Diablo 2 career. So Diablo 2 is approachable, but the challenge is still there, and it's provided to the players in a streamlined process. Normal, Nightmare, Hell. A smooth transition that we see missing in a lot of games. Lastly, this video is about Diablo 2 still being an amazing game when compared to other modern-day ARPGs. So beyond Diablo 2 just being a great game, I think we need to look at modern-day gaming, modern-day ARPGs, and gaming as a whole. So I feel a massive drop in gaming quality has occurred in modern-day gaming due to the focus on money, monetization. So instead of just making a great game that will sell well because it's a great game, we now see devs trying to push for cash shop-oriented game designs. In the ARPG world, it's usually cosmetics, but we do see things like storage and stash upgrades as well. I think there's a pretty obvious difference between a quality game that has quality because it strives to be a good game versus a quality game that strives to keep players glued with hopes they make cash shop purchases. These result in 2 very different games. Both quality games, I would argue, but 2 different outcomes. So, Path of Exile, it's always held to a deadline, right? With its new leagues. New content is awesome, right? Like, we always like new content, but it's definitely hard to continue to deliver quality content every 3 months. They made this schedule for themselves and they hold themselves to, which pretty much requires them to release the new league whether it's ready or not. Take Cyberpunk, for instance. They had a deadline, decided they needed to release the game now. No more delays. Look what happens there, right? When you push things out based off a schedule and you're rushing it, you end up with stuff a little less great. Let's just call it, right? Less than great. Less than good, even. I think this kind of approach may be tantalizing when you think, wow, new content for the game I love every 3 months. Yeah, that's cool. But it's not always the best when it comes to quality. So 2 very different games, both incredible games. Diablo 2, Path of Exile, both incredible. But Diablo 2, it still delivers a fantastic experience 20 years later. And that's what this video is about. So Diablo 2, Path of Exile, Grim Dawn, and many other ARPGs, all great games. Will they hold up 20 years later?
Oh, they good games. I know I've been playing them 20 years.
Who the f*** was that? If I live long enough to see the day these games hit 20 years old, I will make another video. I'll see you guys in 20 years. Throw us a sub. Skit!